If you could introduce yourself for me, please.
My name is Remy White.
Okay, and why are you here?
Because of an investigation into Edgar.
How did you first meet Edgar Hammet?
Brandon introduced Kip and I to Edgar one night. It all feels like a bizarre ride. We had a massive shots at Brandon's, and then we headed out to this basement in the middle of Kitsilano. We got in the front door, answered by some cloaked, pale dude, and the place was just only lit by candles. Brandon talked him up a lot after he met him through Olia recently and said that we really had to meet the dude, and we had no good reason not to. Brandon spent most of the night teasing Edgar, but he didn't really seem to mind or care too much. I think we were good for him. He looked happy. Hearing Edgar talk would change any misconceptions that you've heard about him in the press.
Interesting. Okay, well, tell me about Edgar. How did you become so enamored by him?
Well, he has a special touch, a specific touch. I'd almost call it numbing. If you were feeling uneasy about something, he would talk to you softly and engage with you on a deeper level. He would connect with you with eye contact, and he'd smile with a warmth unlike anything you've seen before. He was more than you or I. And he would touch you with his index and thumb behind the ear, and those few moments of intimacy with him made everything okay. Edgar would always explain how meaningless the external bullshit was to our cause. He would focus our attention and efforts where they needed to be. Provide some clarity.
Well, how did blood consumption become a part of your lifestyle within the group?
For about a month, we discussed sex and diseases, obviously. One subject more fun to talk about over the others. I told them everything. Really, everything, from my darkest fantasies to his tally of partners, to any diseases we had in the past and our blood types, family histories, etc. Edgar had encouraged that we all try to lose blood, and we did. We knew each other's different types, and for 5 nights straight, we each took turns. Thought we could watch over the rest of them. The 4 of us would watch over one just to make sure that they were safe. I mean, we were donating to the group after all. We became closer than any family would.
Why didn't someone suggest animal blood instead?
I think we all suggested human blood might be harder to get and tried to get Edgar onto animal blood instead, but Edgar refused. He said that the key to immortality was not with other species' blood. It had to be human.
So, Ollie has stated in some published interviews that you were all equal and repeated that Edgar made that clear. Is this how you felt?
You have to understand that despite Edgar implying that we were all equal, we weren't, and we all knew it. There was a pecking order, or tasting order, or ejecting line, if you will. Edgar stood above us all, with his two main ladies at his side. It was rare to see us all together, though, because usually if Nayla or Olia was there, the other was absent. And Kat was rarely there if Nayla was. But anyways, it went Edgar and his ladies, and then the guys, and then Kat, and then me. I always knew it, although it wasn't, forced or screamed. But there was a hierarchy that worked. A detailed system that we all knew who to answer to. Every donor answered to me. I could do as I pleased, but if the boys or Edgar deemed it inappropriate, then they would shut it down.
Did they ever do so?
A few times. Once because they thought I was injecting too much, and the other because they thought I was getting too emotionally attached to a donor. We didn't want what happened to Scott to happen again. They cared about me. The subtle sexism made a relationship easier.
Alright, well, what are your feelings on the needles and what occurred there?
So I hate needles. I always have, but I'm weak when it comes to peer pressure. So after squirming and fainting at the sight of the others doing it, I had my turn. Just like the blood drinking, we each took our different days doing so, just to make sure we could look after whoever's turn it was. The four of us would be looking after the one person and making sure they were safe. After all, you're donating to the group. We became as close as any family could be.
I'd heard at first that you didn't know how to use the syringes.
More so, Kip didn't know.
Well, tell me about how the injecting started off.
Needles snapping after being inserted into your veins. That really hurt when Kip kept missing. Do you know how it feels to have a syringe of blood snap after it's getting taken out of you? No, it was not fun at all. Look, I love the dude, but Kip did not know what he was doing when we first started.
Did the procedures improve over time?
As I said, I hated needles. So injecting for me was a huge step. But I got used to it. Eventually even looked forward to it. We do it twice a week, Wednesday and Sunday nights. One vial each. I'll take it from our bank, otherwise known as Edgar's View. As I said, I hate needles, so injecting for me was a huge step. But eventually I got used to it. Even look forward to it. We'd do it twice a week, Wednesday and Sunday nights. One vial each. I'll take it from the bank, otherwise known as Edgar's freezer. We had groups labeled in our personal preferences. Kind of like a menu.
Nice. Let's try that one again. I just fancy it.
From the...
From that I'd heard.
Okay.
So, I'd heard you didn't know how to use the syringes at first.
More so Kip didn't know.
Okay, well tell me about how the injecting started off.
Needles snapping after being inserted into veins. That really hurt when Kip kept missing. Do you know how it feels to have a syringe of blood snapped after it's getting taken out of you? No, it's not fun. Don't get me wrong, I love the dude, but he did not know what he was doing when he first started.
Did the procedures improve over time?
I hated needles. So, like I said, it was a huge step injecting them into me, but after a while, you got used to it. Almost looked forward to it. It would happen twice a week, Wednesday and Sunday nights. One vial each, all taken from our personal bank, otherwise known as Edgar's freezer. We all had specific types, our personal preferences. Everything was labeled. Kind of like a Indian.
Nice. Okay, well, tell me about Jeremy Rush. Wasn't he a part of the Hammet Cult?
No. Jeremy Rush was not like us. Like our little rhyme there. Jeremy came into the group and started injecting right off the bat. It was stupid. He didn't build up to it like the rest of us. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a record with heroin. But his blood test came back clean, so I guess that's all we could really care about at the time. But stupid. You know, happy-go-lucky and daring, but stupid. Track marks built up in his arms like no time.
The police have stated that Jeremy Rush was found severely maimed in a forest and that they suspect Edgar played a role in this. What are your thoughts there?
I call bullshit.
Tell me about Scott Marshall.
Scott was great. And a lesson.
What happened?
He just collapsed. One day he just collapsed. He was walking and he fell to the ground. No one knew until his body was found, but by then it was too late. I talked about him every day to the others. I couldn't help it. But, sometimes you realize that words, unless they yield a positive outcome, are just a form of dwelling. Shit. I sound like Edgar. It's a quote from him. I guess it wouldn't have changed anything. We reviewed our policies at that point. Something had to change.
Okay, well, who is Laurie Vado?
Well, she was a girl that came into the group. I met her no more than a week. She was the only one on site that seemed really into all this. I heard she committed suicide, though. Guess she got too depressed.
Following the accidental deaths of the first owners, how did you move forward?
We devised a system after the first 7 deaths. You have to understand that we weren't promising anything. If you committed, especially to this, Edgar would make sure that you committed with everything. That you contributed with your essence, with your being, with your blood. We had to learn the hard way, about the patterns and let the body regenerate itself. We also learned that the suppliers could not be the consumers.
Did you feel the blood drew you all together?
Yes.
Can you please expand?
We were addicted. Sex was amazing. We were kinky and loved the feeling of injecting blood. You wouldn't believe some of the shit we did. Erotic seems like an understatement. We changed our lifestyle to embrace being up at night and making money online and the taste of blood, both injecting and orally. We got sick sometimes from the blood, but, we just accepted that. It was fun. We would always test our victims thoroughly, but after a while we got reckless with that too. As long as they looked and seemed fit and healthy, we didn't really care.
Were there many problems at the lab because of the intimate relationships?
There were definitely tension because of Edgar's promiscuity. Kat somehow got really close to him and would enjoy time with him and Olia. They got into the usual group stuff. Edgar saw himself as a leader, which he was, so he would encourage monogamy in all of us, especially Olia and Kat. Olia and Kat got on really well, but Kat and Neela hated each other. which was surprising to me given that they both turned out to be untrustworthy.
What were your feelings towards Catherine Jones?
I hated Kat. Hated her. She was manipulative and a liar. Sleeping with Edgar just to be the next in charge. Foul. I wouldn't trust anything she told you. Didn't trust her and really resented the fact that she was more valued than me.
Now, were you aware that she knew that current donor you were drawing from?
No. Not at all. She knew him?
So, were there many problems at the lair because of the intimate relationships?
There was definitely tension because of Edgar's promiscuity. Kat somehow got really close to him and would enjoy time with him and Olia. They got into the usual group stuff. Edgar saw himself as a leader, so he didn't think that he needed to be monogamous. And he encouraged that in the group as well. Especially with Kat and Olia. Olia and Kat got on really well, but Kat and Nayla hated each other. Which was surprising me given that they both turned out untrustworthy.
What were your feelings towards Catherine Jones?
I hated Kat. Hated her. She was manipulative and a liar. Sleeping with Edgar just to get ahead. Foul. I wouldn't trust a thing she told you. Did not trust her and really resented the fact that she was more valued than me.
Were you aware that she knew that current donor you were drawing from?
No. Not at all. She knew him?
How did you find your donors apart from on the various websites?
Bars here and there.
Weren't you afraid of being recognized?
We weren't stupid. We didn't go to the same bars all the time. To leave a trace would be a silly mistake that we would get caught for, and none of us wanted that. So, we went from place to place and didn't get too familiar with the bartenders. Found the loner of the joint who just stood there sipping and staring, surveying the bodies, trying to muster up the Dutch courage to act. We'd approach him, give him a fake name initially. We could give him our real name when we were back at the lair when it was safe, but in case he didn't come with us, we gave him a fake name to begin with. As Edgar always says, organization goes a really long way. Planning something goes a lot further than improvising, right? So we'd only do it at nights. No one suspected a thing. But we would go on quiet nights, no holidays or weekends. We wanted to slide under the radar as much as possible. As few witnesses as we could.
What made you okay with holding people against their will?
Against their will?
The donors.
We didn't.
No?
Look, don't get me wrong. I know what we did was unusual. But we were on a whole nother level. And, we took care of them. We watched the donors.
How come they didn't try to escape?
They did. So, we washed them after they were drained. After they were too weak. Some guy almost broke my jaw trying to escape. And another girl kicked me so hard in the back, I still have resounding pain when I move. So, we learned fast. Didn't want any more of those fights. So we'd wash them after they were drained and they were too weak to move.
Do you still regret nothing?
Don't be insulting.
How do you feel about what you did now that you've had some time to think in here?
Does it really matter now? No. I'm not proud of what happened with Troy. When the ship blew up, I've never felt as humiliated as I did when this all came out. It's one thing to do something in private, but another for tabloids and news channels to call you up and quiz you on your alleged perversions and bondage fetishes. My name is worthless, and to top it all off, if I want to do something with my life, I'll have to change my name and move countries. That is if they deem me fit. What I will say is that I wish I had a father like Troy's. There's nothing wrong with my old man, but he and my mom won't talk to me anymore. I guess after, being exploited and quizzed and demonized because of my actions, I'm their shame. So I never thought as a little girl would do something like this. Who needs them anyway?
So we'll try that one once more. Do you still regret nothing?
It'd be insulting.
Well, how do you feel about what you've done now that you've had some time to think about it in here?
Does it really matter now? No, I'm not proud of this ship with Troy. When this ship blew up, I never felt so humiliated as when all of this became common knowledge. You can take that back if you want.
Sure. Okay. Do you still regret nothing?
Don't be insulting.
Okay, well, how do you feel about what you've done now that you've had some time to think about it here?
Does it really matter anymore? No, I'm not proud of the ship with Troy. When the ship blew up, I've never felt so humiliated as when this all became common knowledge. It's one thing to do the stuff in private, but when news channels and the press are calling you up to quiz you on your bondage fetishes and perversions, my name is worthless, and to top it off, if I want to make something with my life, I'll have to change my name and move countries. That is if they deem me fit. The one thing I do wish, though, is that I had a dad more like Troy's. There's nothing wrong with my old man, but him and his mom don't talk to me anymore. I'm their shame now. After being quizzed and demonized because of my actions. But Daddy's little girl didn't think that she'd turn out like this. He needs them anyway.
Whenever you're ready with the other line.
Guess I deserve this, right? No. I did nothing wrong.